Welcome to the Women in Leadership Body, Mind, Soul, and Business podcast. I'm Charlie.
And I'm Heather. And together we are working to connect women in leadership and business, empowering each other, improving the health and wellness of our community, body, soul, and mind, connecting to the heart and soul of who we are and what we do.
Hi, welcome to the garden. Cyndi's garden, to be specific.
Welcome.
We are here with Cyndi. She is fabulous, and she is from Exceptional Connections, here to share all things that inspire her today. So why don't you take a couple of minutes, introduce yourself, and then we will get into our discussion.
Absolutely. So I am the CEO and founder of Exceptional Connections. It's a networking group that I founded in 2009 during the Great Recession. And it was just a time to bring people together. And so I had been networking and just really hungry for doing it right. And I wasn't finding good role models. And I was just like, oh man, how do I do this? Because it's like the blind leading the blind when you have a bunch of kindergartners teaching each other socialization, right? That's how I looked at it. And so I was really seeking out and looking at people who were influencers and who were good, exceptional connectors. And so I started modeling what I was doing in networking with them. And I found myself in going to networking groups, creating a best practice list, the things I liked, the things I didn't like. And I was cherry picking. And then I created a list of what I wanted a networking group to look like. And I started sharing it with my networking friends. And they were like, oh, that sounds great. Where is it? I want to go. And I'm like, it's in my head. It's in my head. And so they encouraged me to start Exceptional Connections. So it's 13 years ago. So that's been my passion in bringing people together and nurturing relationships. And I'm also a relationship marketing strategist and gratitude coach. So it all kind of goes together in terms of building relationships and trust, the know, like, and trust factor that we talk about. And then, of course, my best friend in the garden, my love of gardening. And so just my time in the garden has just allowed me to really think about, pray about the connections that are in our relationships and building relationships, building trust, and then also the process of creating and growing a garden.
And we love to garden. We talk a lot about gardening. I do my best to garden with Charlie. I can't keep up with her yet, but I will eventually.
Well, she has 10 acres, right?
Yeah,
that's a lot.
I consider myself a baby gardener. Most of my 10 acres is managed forest land, but I do have a pretty large garden space that I love, and I'm learning and I'm nurturing. And this year, with how dry it's been, I'm just trying to keep it alive.
Yes,
but
exactly.
You have some really great lessons that you learned in your garden.
Yes,
about net.
Yes, I have, and actually, it's literally like on a knee pad, digging in the dirt is where these 6 seasons or lessons gleaned from my garden came from.
That's awesome. We talk a lot about the grounding that you get and the joy from gardening and the meditative facts about it. And that I feel like when you get into that meditative state, that's when it flows, right?
Exactly.
Like that's when it comes. So these are things that came to you in your garden.
Yes.
Doing the things that we talk about all the time on our show. We talk a lot about meditation and different types of meditation. So I'm excited. So you call it 6?
Well, it's Lessons Gleaned from the Garden, and there's 6 seasons to gardening. And what was really kind of inspiring to me, even it's kind of fun when it comes to you and then you're like, impressed by what came to you. It's like, thank you for using me as a vessel, God, for this beautiful information. But what really came to me is, yes, it applies to gardening. And so, I just found that gardening is a lot more like networking than you might think at first glance.
Right.
And that's what came to me. But the process itself, lends itself beautifully to gardening. But if you're thinking of a business mindset, it also fits beautifully for that. And the metaphors I'm going to be using are garden metaphors, because I feel like there's a sticky factor where when you talk about, like you said, nurturing, isn't that a beautiful word?
It is.
It's so kind and loving, instead of I'm grooming my network.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
that
Or
sounds dirty.
I've
and
got a
kind of-
target, I'm
Uh-huh.
targeting my client, my ideal client. Not that those are bad, but it kind of makes it feel a little
predatory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
More like hunting
Mhm.
than farming or gardening. To me is just so lovely, and allowing things to, have their own course, like
Mhm.
to grow in their own time.
And every friendship is like that, right? Because sometimes your friendships are brand
Yes.
new, they're baby seeds.
Yes.
And then you have the older friendships that are maybe like your mature trees. Or,
Yes.
you can think about
Mhm.
and identify different people in your life just by thinking in that way, right?
Absolutely. It
So,
takes time.
yeah.
It takes time to grow from a seed to a seedling to the, a baby star plant
To bearing
to
fruit.
bearing fruit. It takes
Mhm.
time. And so I love the, the analogies, the metaphors, because they give us permission to give that time for things to be able to flourish. So the 6 seasons for, that in your garden and in your networking are: number 1, I'll just go through them
Okay.
and then we can talk about them individually. How's that?
Okay.
That sounds like a
Okay.
great
perfect.
plan.
So the first one is to plan. Okay. So again, you plan things, and then next you prepare.
Okay.
Next is the planting piece.
Okay.
And think of it as a circle, and the plan, prepare, plant are on one sphere of the circle, one
Okay.
hemisphere.
Uh-huh.
And then on the other hemisphere, we're looking at the pruning, picking, and prosper. And you notice they're all peas. And they came to me in peas, except for the which piece was it? The pick piece and the prosper piece. I'm like, I need a harvest. I need a P word for harvest. And what I realized, and I'll just tell you this first because it's just so critical to this kind of perception of it, is the pick is when we pull in, and the prosper is when we give out.
Oh.
So that's kind of just a little taste of it. So
All right.
Okay.
All right.
So we've got plan, prepare, plant, prune, pick, and prosper.
Yep, that's
Okay.
those are the 6 seasons, and I did 6 instead of 4 because it's all about cyclical, right?
Uh-huh.
Right.
And I wanted to kind of get people's attention. Like, wait a minute, there's only 4. No, there could be more than one season, more than 4 seasons for things.
We're often in different seasons with our business or
Yes.
our homes.
Our
so that makes
lives.
sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
So accomplishing each step in the process, in this 6-step, 6-season process, moves us closer to the accomplishment of our vision, right? And mastery, being a master gardener, being a master networker, and of course, reaping a bountiful harvest. So it's just such a beautiful vision. So, in watering the garden, as with networking, the act of sowing seeds, nurturing them, and watering them places the vision of the harvest in motion.
Yeah.
It's just such a beautiful picture that I love and that inspires me. So there's 6 seasons for gardening that we're talking about here. And if you are diligent and follow those, you can actually be considered a master gardener, right? If you follow certain things and learn certain principles. And the same holds true with networking. So in networking, and I have a different process I've created, maybe for another day, but it's connect, discover, listen. That's the right hemisphere. And that's contribute, follow up, and nurture.
Oh, yeah.
So that is, you follow these steps, and even the ones that I just shared with the prepare and plan, and you are a master networker. But you don't just do it by, I've been doing this for 20 years. You have to be really focused and diligent and be a good student.
Right.
So you ready to get it going?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So the first season is to plan. So I love this season. This is a season that frankly happens once my garden's put to bed.
Right
Although
All
I
the
do it all
time.
year long.
Let's be honest.
I'm
There's
always
plans.
yeah, I'm always like looking my garden going, okay, like I showed you in our tour today, I'm gonna be at laying more cardboard and putting more chips. And so, this is what I'm gonna be doing next year, and this is how I'm gonna do expansion. So it's always kind of in my head, but it's really more formal where I sit down with a notebook and I really sketch out and plan what's going to be in my garden. And so the planning piece, again, if you're thinking about gardening and networking side by side or on top of each other, however, this is the time where we're envisioning. We're just dreaming. We're forecasting what we want to accomplish.
What is our purpose or intent?
How do we want to
going
show
networking
up?
groups?
What do we want it to look like? Who we want to attract? All that beautiful stuff, right? So that's the plan part. Next, we move into prepare. And prepare is fun because we can't, especially in the garden, you can't dig in the dirt yet. We can't really plant our, our seedlings or our plants.
In February when the ground's solid,
Right. Exactly.
or there's a mud pit, one or the other, right?
But there are things you can do, like you can prepare the good soil. So you lay your chicken manure and lay more chips on it, or fertilize it, or take care of things. Also, that's when I buy my dirt. You saw my dirt pile. So I buy my dirt,
stockpile some dirt
when it's on sale, and I use it all year long, and then I actually have it for the next year before soil's available at the nurseries.
Right.
So my big pile of wood chips in the front.
Old dirt's better than new dirt anyway.
Well,
because that's part of the breakdown.
It doesn't go bad.
The dirt doesn't go bad.
Dirt doesn't go bad.
It can be enhanced.
Yes.
With natural fertilizers, compost.
Yes,
like that.
absolutely.
It doesn't go bad.
Doesn't go bad. So we plan, then we prepare, we get our tools, and it's for networking. We just like, where am I going to network? What kind of people do I want to meet?
What am I going to wear?
What am I going to wear? Yeah, exactly. And so I love the analogy of both. And then we planned, we prepared. Now it's time to plant. Planting is so much fun.
That's the fun part.
It's so much fun.
It's like, I'm going to give you a little seed.
That's right. We get to really, like, the vision we have in our head gets to actually be implemented. We get to take action. And so whether, again, it's networking or building your business, gardening, it's the action piece. It's the part that we've been waiting for and dreaming about. And so this is where we implement, we take, take action, focus, and we sow the seeds. This is the part I love, for a promising future. So something I'm really passionate about is, like, we won't sow seeds in life if we don't have hope or a vision for the future.
To plant a garden is to have hope for the future.
Yes. That is exactly what came to me. And I'm like, if I don't have faith that this is going to grow, I'm not going to, like, this year was a delayed year, about 3 weeks because of the weather. It was too cool to plant things. So I didn't plant them because I didn't think they'd survive. So I held off planting them. So that's really what you just said was perfect. Yeah.
Planting a garden is having hope for the future.
Yes, it is. And same for our businesses. If you really don't feel like you're going to make a difference in the world and the community with what you're doing, you're not as apt to do it. Because especially being an entrepreneur, it takes a lot of gumption, right? A lot of grit and gumption, I say, to get out there and, give the marketplace what you feel it needs.
I feel like everyone has something to offer the world. It's overcoming the fear of letting others see that. That's the hard part. And so, and that's all part of the planting.
Yes.
Are you planting the seeds for your own future as well as helping those around you?
Yes.
Nourish their garden too.
Yes, because the goal is abundance.
Yes.
And abundance means giving it away. And that means more than enough.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's the goal. Like your strawberries.
Yes.
I love your strawberry. You said you had,
gallons and gallons and gallons
so
of
you
strawberries.
ate all you can eat. You gave some away.
I
you
canned
some. You made things out of it.
We have some in the freezer. Like all the places, right?
Right. Okay. So we've done the first hemisphere. We planned, we prepared, we planted. Now, the thing to understand about this process for gardening and for networking is it's not a check, check, check.
Right.
It's ongoing. I'm still planning. I'm still preparing, even for next year or for later, this fall. And the
Well,
planting
sometimes you put
happens
the bulbs
ongoingly.
in the ground
Yes.
in the fall, and
Yes.
then they
Yes.
sprout in the spring. So there's a cyclical to every season
For that plant,
for that
so that
plant.
whatever that
Yeah.
plant needs, whenever that plant needs to be planted to, have an optimal yield for it. So the next piece, the fourth piece that's on the left hemisphere is pruning. And I have to tell you, if there's any lesson that I've learned from the 6-step process that's really hit home to me, is the pruning piece. And I think people don't honor that as much or think it's very important. And it's hard to see in our businesses because we're like heads down, getting things done. But the pruning is something that's ongoing. So as soon as I start planting, I'm pruning. I mean, almost immediately. And so the idea of pruning is really discarding that which is no longer living or serving you. And so, it's eliminating, streamlining, cleaning up. So again, think of this in terms of your business, right? Weeding out anything that will drain positive energy or growth. So that's always been my secret in gardening, even as a young girl. And I'll tell you after this process, if you want to know how I got started gardening, or my early beginnings, if you will. But that's what I learned as a young girl is I had these little plants that I'd grow in my windowsill. And the reason mine had survived and my sisters and friends didn't is because I was always pruning off the, deadheading the flowers and taking the leaves that were dying. Because what I learned early is all the energy in that plant, it will still go to that dead flower or that dead leaf. It will be sapping that energy instead of to new growth.
Right.
And so once I really got that premise and practiced it in my garden, I realized the power of pruning and of streamlining and cleaning up and being diligent about taking out of our garden and our businesses that which no longer serves us.
Right.
I love that. Because that's one of my favorite things to do, right? Is to go through the systems, okay, so I do this, then you do this, then I do this, then you do this. Like, do we need to do it differently? Like, I love that. Like,
We
looking at that.
Moved a bunch of files over to the archive folder.
Like,
yeah, it's the clear out, clean out, and sometimes it's just out of sight, out of mind too. You don't always have to get rid of it. It's just getting it out of your eyesight so that you can have a little more clarity and more space. But in terms of networking, and this is the piece that I think is harder than the gardening analogy, it really takes a ruthless commitment to cut back what's no longer serving you. And, sometimes that takes the form of relationships. And it's hard because we don't want to be that mean or whatever, like even when people say, I'm cleaning out my Facebook, right? I'm getting rid of some contacts.
Say hi if you're still here.
Stay hi if you're still here. Yeah. And it's just the whole idea of, because we're always wanting to build, right? In our businesses, in our lives. And the idea of like, oh, but I might need that. Or, I don't want to be mean. But it's really, we need to be able to have that ruthless commitment.
And on the verge of, on the note of why you wanted to do that on Facebook is that if you have people that aren't interacting on Facebook, they're actually holding you down in the algorithm. So if you prune that and you do that,
I didn't know
it
that.
cleans up your algorithm.
I cleaned up my groups this morning a little bit. I was like, I don't need to follow that group anymore. I don't need to follow that group anymore. Because, your feed ends up getting cluttered with things that aren't serving you.
Right.
So when someone tells me that their feed's just negative and full of this, that, I'm like, why? Can we talk? Because you
Pruning.
don't need. Yes.
Yes, let's prune.
I was like, I don't have that problem. And then I
Right.
realized I had done that step
Right.
of only finding things that are bringing me joy. And those are the things I'm following. So every time I have my feed open, I'm loving on everybody because it's people I want to love on. Like,
Absolutely.
it's perfect.
Absolutely. And pruning is kind of a like nurturing. It's a
Yeah.
gentle word,
Yeah.
you know, instead of cut them out, get
Right.
rid of them,
Right.
you know?
Those that feels very like masculine. Like
Yeah.
hunter, gather,
Yeah.
prune, like cut them out.
Yeah. Right.
Mhm.
But when we're pruning, we're, you know, again, we're our vision is for life,
Mhm.
vitality, new growth, and nothing that'll pull it down
Right.
or sap the energy. Okay, so we planned, we prepared, we planted, we're pruning ongoingly.
Mhm.
Again, all this is a process. We're
All
doing
the
it
time.
continually. It's not a check system. But then there comes a time in your garden
Mhm.
that I know you know and you've
Yes.
experienced with her garden is the picking.
Yeah.
So the picking is a beautiful time because it's just like the culmination of all your efforts coming to fruition,
Mhm.
and where you actually get to hold that little, you know, tomato, like we were
Mhm.
we were snacking on
your
the
tomatoes
sun
over
gold
here.
tomatoes or the squash, make a
Mhm.
dish with it, or even put the parsley in.
Mhm.
You know, there's something really gratifying about that. And I have to tell you, just as kind of a side note, so one of the things I love about gardening is being able to come out to my garden with a little basket and
Mhm.
pick parsley and pick basil and pick my squash or my tomatoes and go in the house and do something with it. And I'm always like showing my husband, see, I just went shopping. I call this my living pantry.
Mhm.
This is my living pantry, so I can come out and just pick things. But
Mhm.
it brings me so much joy. So that's the picking part where we're harvesting it in,
Mhm.
right? We're making use of it. We're, you know, just enjoying it. And then, you know, the part that the last piece of this season's glean from the garden is the prospering part.
Mhm.
And this is the part that gives me so much satisfaction because out of the abundance of a garden, you can share it. And so again, just like I shared earlier, you know, you pick, you bring it in, bring in the harvest, and then the prosper is to share the abundance.
Yes.
So
Which is
lovely.
exactly what abundance is for. It's to share with others. It's not to hoard it
No,
all to yourself.
no, and you know, it's about it is about the sowing piece
Mhm.
is the planting piece,
Mhm.
and the reaping piece is the
Mhm.
harvest piece.
Mhm.
And that's, you know, seed, plant, and harvest. That's since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
That's the government of nature.
I feel like it's like the circle of life.
It is the circle
Yeah.
of life. That's a beautiful way to
Mhm.
say it. And so, so that's, you know, it's just been really gratifying to have that process to, you know, pause and think about, contemplate, and then, you know, being able to transfer that to our businesses
Mhm.
and use those similar kind of feelings and lessons that we all need to remember.
Mhm.
And part of it is the pause too, because you're waiting for things to grow, and there's that time in there that you should be resting and doing the self-care and doing the other
Yes.
things that you know, if you can't get to the hose to do the watering, you got to work on, you know, like what
Right.
are the other pieces?
And another piece of that is you plant it, you water it, you care for it, and you leave it be. You don't pull it out to see if it's done yet.
Good call.
That's brilliant. And that's exactly what I like to share with people in terms of the networking piece, because we know that in gardening,
Right.
right? We won't do that.
Right.
But in networking, we want the results and we want to, is it growing? Is that relationship blossoming? And you can kill that relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, or severely handicap it.
Yeah. Don't pull it out.
Don't pull it out.
And you're the creep smelling
Yeah.
people's hair. Like,
Oh, geez.
Your hair smells good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, it's about just
Mhm.
trusting the process.
Mhm.
And that's
Yeah.
the most important piece. If you know that there's a
Okay.
process
Mhm.
and you know there's a cycle,
Mhm.
it's going to happen without you. But
Mhm.
how great to have that those insights when you're running your business and you're you know growing and building a garden.
what a beautiful alignment. right? Because you can get into the vortex of the pattern of what you're doing and find that meditative balance to it.
It's a flow for sure.
Yeah.
And we weave in and out of it. And then there is that pause time. That would be a good one to add, pause, because everything needs to marinate and has time. Like we need time to kind of pull back and rest, take vacations, get rejuvenated. Well, the garden does too.
Right.
And so there are certain things that I'll plant for fall garden, but there's a lot of areas, and we talked about it when we went through the garden tour, that I'm going to leave just so that it can marinate. I'm going to give it what it needs
And just leave it be.
and let it be.
Because when it's time to harvest, that abundance will come back and not a minute sooner.
Right. And
Right.
and the other piece I was thinking about is I also need to rest because I put a lot of energy into taking care of my garden. I take it seriously because I am the garden tender. I am, who else is going to take care of it?
You.
Me.
Yeah.
If I'm not here, it's not going to happen. And so, I'm bringing community into it to enjoy it. But I'm also wanting it to be sustainable for as long as I can. So that's been it's been a lovely journey. And I've really just been so grateful for those epiphanies that came literally on my knees, digging in the dirt, and be able to share those with others who can take those little insights at like the sticky factor I was talking about, thinking about each relationship as a seed. And so, you are number 13 for my garden parties this summer. I've been having garden parties since July. And I consider you being here, we're in a relationship garden. This is my relationship garden. So we have the literal garden, with the tomatoes and whatnot, and then my relationship garden, which we can play in this space, right? And have fun and enjoy it and build our relationships.
Absolutely.
That's so
I love it.
fabulous.
And I love that you do garden parties to connect people together because it is a very comfortable, neutral environment of positive growth.
It has been. And I actually had the vision in 2018 and did a couple of little parties. And then 2019, I did a few more, and it was going to hit the ground running in 2020. And then what happened. Exactly. Exactly. So I had that was my pause. So I just expanded my garden, and this whole thing just marinated and has given me time to really be able to flesh it out, which I'm grateful for. And so, although I had a few people, 2021, it was usually onesie twosie garden parties. I've started in July 15th, I think was my first garden party of this year. And so you're the number lucky 13 here. It's been
That's
super fun.
awesome.
Yeah. And
I feel very blessed to be in this space today. It smells amazing. It is
tastes
beautiful.
wonderful.
It tastes good.
You engaged all of our senses. We were out here walking in the sunshine, and we can hear all the nature and airplanes
and weed whackers.
Yeah, it's real life,
sounds,
right?
right? And then we can we got to touch and smell everything, and then also taste so many wonderful things. So,
Yeah, it's an aromatic and munching experience, right?
Yeah.
So you're welcome. Thank you.
and then that also creates that experience where you get calmer, right? So if you're here with like other people maybe you didn't know, and you're all trying something new, or you're all getting to ground.
Yes.
There's a natural earthing that happens in the garden, right?
Yeah.
So everybody that comes to a garden party gets grounded.
We all get grounded.
Yeah.
We all
Together.
literally grounded.
Together, yes.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much because it's not just, the way the things I do in my garden have been things I've learned over time, and sometimes the hard way. And
Right.
frankly, I hate to I hate to say I killed things, but I have,
Right.
there's things that I haven't handled well in my garden, planted too soon, or haven't
I think
tended.
people get stuck on that too with gardening, like, oh, I can't start from seeds, or they tell themselves that story, right? I
Right.
can't do this.
That's how we learn.
But that's
right?
part of the process.
Yep.
Is like not everything's going to survive when you plant it.
Same thing with business.
Yeah, not every
That's
relationship
right.
you make in business is meant to be your business relationships, right? Like that's not how it works. You
Right.
have to so many seeds.
And
Right.
trusting the process.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So I've learned so much from others that have come to my garden parties and friends that, just sharing their wisdom and pearls and knowledge, and just we help each other.
Right.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So just to kind of put a bow on this process and, my passion for networking and relationships and gardening and tending and all that, it's kind of been my mantra with Exceptional Connections is just to imagine viewing every chance encounter as a connection that can change the course of your life. If we do that and we don't step over anybody, we just honor that relationship. We plan, prepare, plant, prune, pick, prosper. We take that relationship and nurture it. You never know what's possible.
Right.
And I've experienced that in my life. I have some of my best friendships. I think back, how you track that relationship back. And I'm like, I'm so grateful that I was open, or I took the time, or I made the choice to be there. And I'm so grateful that that relationship had the gift of time to really blossom into a friendship that's a lifelong friendship. We all have those, right?
Right. Right. And like when I met Heather just
Your story is beautiful.
over a year ago, it's like we instant connection. It's not like that for everybody.
Nope.
No, it's
And
not.
honestly, I have only experienced that instant connection like that only a couple of times in my life. Every other relationship has been, cultivated,
Right.
nurtured,
Right.
and
Trial
all these
and
things.
error.
Yes.
Trial and error.
And that's a beautiful point that you just made, because you're talking about giving things time, but there's also the click factor. That's what I call it. The click factor is when things just, it's like you've been, bosom buddies forever. There's a synergy there. And that's actually a wonderful piece we should kind of talk about real quick, is the companion planting part. So you guys,
Companion planting.
Yes.
Planting.
So
yes.
you nurture each other, and
Yeah.
in a garden, you repel the bad bugs that are going to bother the basil or whatever, and you grow the marigolds that will repel them, and also the beneficial insects are attracted. So you guys, I can tell you have each other's back,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Yeah.
And you get each other,
Yes.
and that's rare.
Right.
But you have to be open, otherwise we miss that.
Right.
Oh gosh, if we weren't ready, we wouldn't have clicked.
Yeah.
Because we had both been on such a parallel journey of self-discovery and grief processes and all the things that we were doing by ourselves that felt lonely that we didn't need to do by ourselves because we were both doing it. And then we came together and empowered each other to do more.
Yes.
To show up better every day, to take that next step, even though it's scary, make the phone call or have the meeting, stand up for ourselves, and a different, all of those things, just supporting each other. So I think that's great with the synergy garden, because it's kind of like we're like the tall stalks of your tomatoes, and we want to take in the little basils and keep them safe, and like who can we help, like bring it,
draw like-minded people to you,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Not that we can't be with everybody and have a good time and learn something like that. Really imagine viewing every chance encounter. You don't want to ever leave anybody out,
Right.
but there are times when having like-minded people together in a
It
room,
feels so amazing.
it's peaceful.
Yeah.
There's not contention.
It's easy.
It's easy. And who doesn't like easy?
Right.
Especially what we've been through, right?
So real quick to wrap it up, let's review these 6 seasons.
Okay.
So we have planning, right? Then we have preparing, right?
Yep.
Then we have planting.
Yes. Which is so much fun.
So much fun. Pruning.
Not so much
which
fun.
is work.
Not so much fun, but so important.
Very
Right.
important. Picking,
which is
the
joyful.
harvest, right?
It's the harvest.
And prospering.
Oh,
That's
which
abundance,
is-
sharing with
which
others.
is lovely, which
That's the
is
favorite
so
part.
lovely. It is. And I can't, tell you, like the plant pick and prosper are really the fun pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The other is like a little more work,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just so rewarding.
It is.
So rewarding. And and that's why we prune, because we have the vision of the harvest in our head.
Yes.
And it's in motion, and we
Mhm.
can participate with it, or we can, like, if there's something that I don't prune, it will die,
Mhm.
Right.
because the dead leaves or whatever will pull it
Hold it
down,
and
Mhm.
hold it back.
from being
Mhm.
its best.
Right. And
Mhm.
part of the pruning part, frankly, is being willing to, like, I had over here, what do I call it? That plant is called rosemary, a rosemary plant that wasn't doing very well in a smaller pot.
Mhm.
I had to transplant it. It needed more room for its roots.
Mm.
So that, I kind of consider that part of the pruning.
Pruning could be giving
Giving space.
Mhm.
and not giving enough room for it to flourish.
Yes.
To grow,
right?
Yes.
flourish, yeah.
Yes. So, my journey as my humble beginnings as a gardener started when I was a young girl,
Mhm.
and I call it a corner office. So I had a corner bedroom with
Mm.
windows,
Mhm.
and I had extra window space. And
Mhm.
so I used to I should have brought one out here to show you, but I used to collect mustache mugs.
Oh my
Mhm.
gosh.
You know, the
yes.
ones
How
that
fun
men,
is that? Yeah.
that keep from
Yeah.
getting milk
Mhm.
on their mustache. And I'd put little plants on it and put it on my windowsill. And all my friends and my sister, would come over and they go, "How do you keep them looking so fresh?" And it was the pruning, of course. That's my secret, right?
Mhm.
And so that was always fun. And so they bring me their dead plants or their half dead plants, whatever, and want me to revive them. So that was always something that was fun for me, to be able to give back to people and give them joy. And so even before I had my garden, I was kind of playing in the dirt.
You just explained to me why my grandma's African violets would die with me, because I never did that pruning piece of her little African. Now I
Oh.
know why. Like, I always was worried about that. I was like, I would give them water. I would leave them alone. Like,
Yeah.
but I never pulled leaves or
Yep.
anything on them because I was always worried because they're hers. Like, I was trying to keep them just
Right.
perfect,
Right.
but they needed more
Yeah.
attention during that time.
I have a hard time going to doctor's offices or whatever and seeing their dead plants there.
You're like,
I'm like, can I like do a little pruning here? And they're like, oh yeah.
Have fun.
You have no idea what a difference it's going to make, So it's fun to be able to remind people, of how important it is to,
Well, like
take care of things.
like a dahlia, if you don't
Mhm.
take the dead head off, then it goes to seed and doesn't give you another flower. But if you take that dead head off,
Yep.
you cut it off,
Yep.
and then you get a new flower.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
Yeah, it's true.
mean,
It's so true.
how can you get new flowers in your life every day?
So I had right
Mhm.
here behind us, I had sugar peas.
Mhm.
And I love the sugar peas, and I love the blossoms of the sugar peas. They're just so lovely. But I wanted to save the sugar peas for my parties that came through, so I could
Mhm.
actually, have people nibble on it. So I wasn't eating as many of them as I should.
Mhm.
And they started to go to seed, and then they stopped producing new ones.
Mm.
So you're signaling to the plant, it's time to go to seed if you're not picking enough,
Mhm.
Mm.
because the whatever's on there is already kind of starting to, dry up and go to seed.
Mhm.
So timing is everything, right?
Yeah.
So thank you so much for
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you
letting me talk to you
for-
girls.
This
This
is
is so much
awesome.
fun.
It's been great hanging out in your garden, and I
Aw.
can't wait for the lovely garden lunch you made
Yes,
us.
we're gonna have some
It's so great.
salad and goodies from the garden. And so I'll just leave you with kind of some closing thoughts. So I just want to encourage everybody to nurture your network and your relationships like you tend a garden, right?
That's so beautiful.
And to take action to cultivate your garden. So just like you don't start off with a harvest,
Mhm.
you start with seeds. You don't start with great relationships.
Right.
We end up with them,
Yes.
right?
Mm.
So the investment of time, effort, and consistency allows us to reap the rewards of being an exceptional gardener and an exceptional connector.
Yay! If you want to get in contact with Cyndi from Exceptional Connections, check out the links in the description below. Thank you, Cyndi, for having us over in your lovely garden. It's been a true blessing, and sharing these 6 seasons of lessons from your garden is just icing on the cake. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And I am just honored that you came into my garden, that we had this time together to nurture our relationship. Because I already feel like, even though I met you early September, I already feel like our relationship took a huge jump in the opportunity for us to do things together. So thank you. And I love what you're doing, and I'm like a raving fan.
Yay! We like to hear that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining us today for this week's episode. We love you all. Namaste. Mwah!
As entrepreneurs, we feel it is our duty to give. This quarter's cause of the quarter is the Tears Foundation. The Tears Foundation seeks to compassionately lift a financial burden from families who have lost a child by providing funds to assist with the cost of burial or cremation services. They also offer parents comprehensive bereavement care in the form of grief support groups and peer companions. To find out more or to donate today, go to thetearsfoundation.org. Thank you for joining us today on the Women in Leadership Body, Soul, Mind, and Business podcast. Please download the podcast on your favorite podcast player. We love you, and we will see you next time. Namaste.